where you are actually on. Did the stream end for some reason? Something weird happened on my display. Connection was lost. Okay. Well, obviously we did not lose that much. I was just getting the connection to last week's video. Well, it is counting on for some reason. At least the continuity of the stream seems not to have been broken. Well, we will see. Well, last thing that we had a look at, and this is obviously still true, multiple occupancy. I got a new stream. That is always annoying. Then I will have to put 2 videos on YouTube afterwards. Well, can't be helped. Yeah, multiple occupancy. If in one block there is already one train, the train is picking up the signal that the machine is sending via the track circuit, and a train that is getting into this block won't get any signal because the current is picked up by the train in front of it, and so it will get a 0 signal, and a 0 signal will always translate into a restricting aspect without dispatcher's discretion or whatever, so that this train has to watch out that it does not run into the back of the train in front of it. This is why those machines send their signals backwards instead of ahead, and why the restricting aspect is connected with the 0 pulses code. That was the presentation for today. What I wanted, as I announced before, wanted to do today is to look at this. Those are the NORAC rules again, and it is rule 553. And 553 tells us what happens if cap signal changes between fixed signals. We have seen that in the stream so far a lot. That cap signals can change between fixed signals. And what do we have to do then? The most important thing is actually what I wanted to point out here is the B. And this is what we have to first look at. Interlocking signal requires medium or limited speed. What happens then? So we're parsing a signal that requires us to slow down to medium or limited speed. And then we're running on, and then our cap signal gets upgraded. So first we get an approach medium signal with a 45 indication, and then we get the clear back. And then the rule 553b tells us we must not increase our speed until the train has run its length. So not getting the clear and then pushing the throttle to max, but wait until the train has traveled its full length. Actually, well, take this with a grain of salt. It is, from the wording of the rule, only applicable to interlocking signals. So I don't know if non-interlocking signals like block signals can actually require a medium or limited speed. Typically it's interlocking signals, so I'm not entirely sure if there are signals that are not interlocking signals and then that can require medium or limited speed, and then the rule according to its wording would not be applicable at all. Second thing is, what signals actually require medium or limited speed? Is an approach limited or approach medium signal already a signal that requires medium or limited speed? Because it just tells you that you're approaching a signal that is requiring medium or limited speed. Nevertheless, the cap signaling aspect associated with it is an approach medium 45 aspect, so that you actually have to slow down to limited speed. So probably this is already what this rule has in mind, but it is not extremely clear to me and I cannot verify how this actually works. For game purposes, I would just treat it like every time you get an approach medium aspect 45 in your cap when you pass the wayside signal, and afterwards you get a better aspect like a cap 80 or a clear 125, clear 150, then you should run the full length until you increase speed. This also has the benefit that you don't go into a accelerating braking cycle, because just according to the train in front of you clearing blocks, and then you're running into the same block again, or not the same block but getting closer to the other train, then you always get an increase and then a decrease in the, or yeah, you get the signals, you get the better aspects and then the worst signal aspects again, and then you're always accelerating to 125 and then you get the approach medium again. And this does not happen that easily if you just wait until you have traveled your full train length until you start accelerating again. And yeah, so that is that. The C rule: cap signal changes from restricting if you're actually getting a restricting aspect on the cap signals when you get into the block, and after that you get a more favorable aspect. So the same situation here, but not medium or limited, but restricting speed. Then you have to run your full length or 500 feet. So this is a slight difference, because if you're running actually a train that is shorter than 500 feet, then you have to run at least 500 feet. But again, in the game, your train is 750 feet long, and so it is more or less the same. So if you're entering a block with restricting and then you get a more favorable aspect, don't accelerate at once, but run your full length according to 553C. Yeah, the other one, A, is quite it's more or less self-explanatory. If you're entering with a better aspect and then get restricting, then you have to reduce your speed to restricted speed. That is more or less obvious. And if it is changing from clear to approach medium, then you must obviously reduce your speed, or begin reducing your speed to limited speed 45 at once. So A and D is more or less self-explanatory. The other things are not necessarily self-explanatory, but yeah, upgrades in the aspect after entering the block, you should run your train's length until you start accelerating. This is what I wanted actually to point out with looking at this rule. Obviously, the exception, we have noted this last time, hopefully. All this does not apply if the signal does not confirm. If your cap signal does not conform to the fixed signal when you're entering the block, then the more restrictive signal governs throughout the block. Yeah, so even if the cap signal upgrades while you're in the block, it is still the more restricting or restrictive wayside signal at the beginning of the block that will govern your movement, and then you will have to tell the dispatcher anyway that there is something amiss, and for security reasons the more restrictive signal will govern. If the cap signal is the more restrictive one and it gets upgraded, then you can actually make use of the upgrade. But if the fixed signal is the more restrictive, then you should stick to that, because the wayside signal obviously has no chance to tell you its indication the cap signals have. That was that, rule 553, an interesting rule in the NORAC system, and with actually impact on the game. With that was the theory for today. I hope it wasn't too boring, because we recapped a bit the stuff from last time. But this allows us to go back to driving the train. Volumetric skies have been introduced to the Boston Sprinter DLC with the last update. Sometimes, if you're not just looking into a tunnel, it is really great and nice. So, enough boarding, people. Let's close the doors. And prepare for departure. Signal aspects at clear 150, clear skies, and line speed is 125 from the axis. At the moment it will decrease to 120 soon enough. But before that happens, we can just accelerate fully. Thought there was a train coming from the opposite direction, but there is none. $120. If we are actually below the new speed limit, it is enough obviously to acknowledge it, but we still have to acknowledge it. It's Readville here, right? If I'm not mistaken. Oh, I was already on dim. Good for the other train. Now I can go back to bright. So this is the stretch of track where we overtook the MBTA train in the last stream 2 weeks ago. The one that came back when we approach limited, suppression. Well, but you can see it takes us quite a while to slow down from the 120 that we have been traveling to the 45 that the signal aspects require, even with suppression breaking on. But that is okay for the system, so the signals are arranged in a way that nothing bad happens, and that this braking distance is actually safeguarded. And instead of getting full greens and then being slowed down to a stop, what happened in the last video, we are slowed down to medium clear, and now the signal got better, increased to clear 125. And this is a situation, I think, where we have to run our full train length until we can accelerate again. What should have happened by now? It would be wise probably to use the train length counter in those situations. Then you don't have to guess. Are you planning to cover some topics that are not in the game at the moment? Well, are you thinking of some specific topics? Because typically I try to cover stuff that is in the game or should be in the game at least. So a bit looking beyond what is in the game, I think, makes sense. But in general, I would talk, or I prefer to talk about things that you can actually see at work in the game. So do you have anything specific in mind? This time I actually use the train length counter to not accelerate too fast. Here the lighting is a bit weird, isn't it? Oh yeah. Safety system is, yes. If I can get enough information about the safety system, then I'm always glad to talk about them or cover them. If there is at least some connection to the games, preferably, so that I can show a bit of it at least in action. So, approach. No, it was obviously not a full approach, because it translated to approach medium. Passing Ruggles. What always makes me think of Dr. Snuggles. Don't know if anyone knows this guy. Soon we will get the 30 from the access when approaching Boston Back Bay. But you saw, same service, we are no longer stopped. So some changes. Some changes to the signaling system made the other train proceed faster or us slower, I'm not quite sure yet. So there was no need for us to be stopped at the red signal. So you're thinking about CBTC? Yeah. Very interesting point. CBTC. Well, we don't have anything in the game or difference between German and Austrian signaling. Not Australian signaling. AJ. Well, I would love to cover some Austrian signaling and train control stuff. Also how they calculate brake percentages and stuff in Austria. But to be honest, I would wait for Train Sim World to have an Austrian route to do that. Oh, no. Heavens. Now I stopped short. And CBTC. I think CBTC, if you talk about that, communication-based train control is more or less a catch-all or a category name. So there are different systems of communication-based train control actually. And to cover that, you would need to know which system you're actually talking about. Another thing, can you see what this car is doing? Someone is rocking this car. I wonder what the passengers are actually doing in my car here. Walk, 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 walk. You're supposed to sit here in the station and not shake around. Railjet would be great in the game. Yes, it would be great. But they are quite reluctant to go into new signaling systems and stuff, from what I can see. Well, this is irritating me. Who is rocking my car? You can see it also rocking, right? This is not just me. Nope, we can see it. Yeah, okay. There is the MBTA train, by the way. That was stopping us in the other... stream. I think we were just in front of this train and so we did not need to stop. Well, maybe it was a different train that was stopping us on the different stream anyway, because we are on different track. Now this is the dwarf signal that we have been talking about. Yellow over flashing red. The flashing is not really so prominent anymore, is it? As it was before the update. But now it is corrected. We no longer get a restricted here, but we get an approach, as it is to be expected, because the medium approach translates to an approach 30. Well, daylight is breaking, evening is drawing near. And we have to prepare to slow down to the incoming traffic speed limit of 15. That is not signaled anymore. Access will give us a short warning. It's nice the other train in front of us, isn't it? Well, the rocking car is rocking my locomotive as well. No, where is it? Where is the axis going down to 15? Should have happened here, shouldn't it? For some reason it didn't. Good thing we know that. Now it did. That was too early. Now careful, because there is this dwarf signal above the track that was stopping us last time, and now it is stopping us not. We have a slow approach. So we can go on. Speed limit will drop to 10 after passing the signal. Cap speed limit is 20. The limit of 10, you can see it here. We know it because we have route knowledge. But it is no longer fed into the access system. No valid TSR. This is temporary speed restrictions, by the way, telling us that we don't get any data from access. So we will have to stick to the 10 out of our own accord. By the way, if you look into the system's ATC access, we are still on a 60 miles per hour access limit, somewhere coded in the game. For whatever reason. Oh, I did not turn on the bright lights after leaving Boston Back Bay. We now have actual red signals or stop signals in the Dwarf version at the end of the platforms that we did not have before the update. What actually makes the signaling in this part of the track working properly. So I don't know what you think about it, but I think it is really a great update. It is less spectacular because we don't have those hard changes between 125 and 45, and we don't have a stop on this service. But it feels very correct and very prototypical, and it allows some relaxed driving according to the cap signals. And this shows how updating existing signaling systems and safety system is up to one person who is making the effort, actually, like Brandon did, and I really appreciate that. When we will have a look at the Sherman Hill oops, that was not the bell, that was the wiper. When we will have a look at the Sherman Hill DLC and the signaling there, and especially the cap signaling that is happening there or is supposed to happen there, we will see that this DLC and its cap signaling needs a lot of love. Wipers off, please. Because it is not in a good state at all, and this is most probably the reason why on Cajon Pass there was no cap signaling implemented at all, even though there should be. But we will see to that in the streams in the next few weeks. I want to do one more stream about the electro locomotive stuff on the Oldenburg-Bremen DLC, to have a look at the Karlsruher Kopf, because there is actually some interesting stuff to talk about. And then 2 streams, I think, about Sherman Hill, one about the route signaling and one about the cab signaling that should happen there, or should have happened there until mid-2022, when Union Pacific abolished their cab signaling system. And yeah, to get back to what you said, CD Radar, and installed more or less a communication-based train control system. That was ETMS, I think is the name, or something like this. What is obviously not implemented in the game either. But what might be an interesting thing to talk about in the future. So, the newly modeled Boston skyline is more or less what we end our stream with, and someone said that there is stuff modeled outside the station area where you don't necessarily need to go to. Well, I still think this DLC is one of the prettiest that we have. I love this New England scenery. I love the trains in it. And I'm super happy that it finally, after 1 year or more, got this signaling update. Still some little things to do. Still some things to look at. But all in all, this is one of the greatest upgrades that we got since I am playing Train Sim World. Thank you very much for bearing with me today. And yeah, have a nice time in between, CD Radar. Thank you for moderating, AJ. Take care and see you next time.